Natsuki gathered his courage and asked Hikari if they could walk home together. They made a group chat and took a photo together, but her friend thought he was flirting with her, which embarrassed Hikari, especially since it seemed like she didn't actually mind the idea. Afterwards, Natsuki was back at home when Miori called him. He was confused and asked why she had his number. Miori explained that her sister gave it to her. She was calling because she wanted to know more about her dear Rei. Natsuki asked her since when Rei belonged to her. Miori told him to come outside because she was waiting for him at a certain spot so they could talk more comfortably. Natsuki arrived quickly, and Miori looked at him disapprovingly, thinking it was pathetic that he always wore the same thing. She asked who in their right mind would wear sportswear to meet a girl. Natsuki told her not to make a big deal out of it and mentioned that he didn't have many decent clothes, so this was the most acceptable option. Miori kept giving him that look because he seemed careless with his clothing. Natsuki said he would talk about Rei, but in exchange he wanted to ask her for a favor. Miori agreed and asked what he needed. Natsuki explained that he was going out with his friends tomorrow and basically needed her help because he wasn't good at dressing himself, and she already knew that. He had no sense of fashion and begged her to help him. Miori accepted, and they went to a store to buy some clothes for Natsuki. He apologized for the trouble, but Miori told him not to worry about it. She knew that in these situations he was completely on his own, and she was the only person he could ask for help. That was exactly why she was the perfect accomplice. Natsuki didn't understand why she called herself his accomplice. Miori reminded him that he had already asked for her help because she wanted to get to know Rei better so she could get closer to him. Now that he was part of their group, it would be easier if he kept helping her. Natsuki understood, but asked if in return she would help him with anything he needed. Miori said of course, with her help, his first steps in high school would be a complete success and she'd turn him into the most extroverted person in the world. He just had to help her with Rei as much as he could, and she would help him get a girlfriend. Natsuki was convinced, so their alliance was officially formed. The day of the outing arrived. Tatsu already had a sharp style. Sakura looked more feminine and different from usual. Hikari came dressed in an unexpected style, and Yui was dressed formally, which was pretty normal for her. Rei was clearly stealing the show, but Natsuki wasn't far behind thanks to Miori's help. Once everyone had arrived, they started their outing. Hikari asked Natsuki where he bought his clothes. He told her, but couldn't help feeling insecure and asked if it looked bad on him. She told him not to be so negative because she was actually trying to compliment his outfit. Natsuki felt relieved and thought that Miori's help was already paying off. He also wanted to take the initiative, so he told Hikari that her clothes looked great on her. However, Hikari wasn't satisfied with great because it didn't sound that good, and she thought he should have said she looked cute. Natsuki apologized, but she just laughed because he got nervous and told him it was only a little joke. She mentioned that she actually preferred androgynous clothing, basically women's clothes that also look like men's. In fact, she sometimes bought men's clothes if she liked them, and she was glad he thought her outfit looked great. Natsuki was completely smitten just from that. He thought Hikari was way too cute. They went to a sports entertainment venue. Sakura was super excited and wanted to know what they were going to do. Rei figured that since they were a bit busy, they should just start with whatever was available. He asked if they liked ping pong because that was free. Sakura thought it was perfect and was the most enthusiastic. Hikari mentioned that even though she was bad at most sports, she was actually pretty good at this one. Takuya found it interesting and said he would show her all his skills because he thought Hikari would be a good opponent. Hikari didn't think so and didn't like the idea of playing against him because it scared her a bit. Sakura said he would have to beat her first if he wanted to play against Hikari. Tatsu just felt like they were treating him like some kind of evil boss. Natsuki gathered his courage, though he was a bit nervous, and asked Hikari to play with him since he didn't want to play against Takuya. She thought it was a good idea but asked him to please be gentle with her. Natsuki said okay. But once again he was completely smitten because he kept thinking how cute she was. They started playing. Takuya and Sakura were both quite good. Rei was with Yui waiting because there weren't any more spots available, so they said they would cheer for now. Although Rei thought a tournament would be more fun and interesting, Sakura liked the idea, and the match between Takuya and her got more intense. Natsuki was playing with Hikari, but she was just starting and began losing. It seemed she wasn't as good as she had claimed. She said she hadn't played in a long time, so she was pretty rusty. Although Natsuki noticed that when she missed, the ball wasn't even close. They started again, but Hikari couldn't even hit the ball properly. She said today wasn't her lucky day and she didn't know what was happening. Yui approached and told her not to be afraid and to just tell the truth. Natsuki had already noticed without being told, so he said he was surprised she claimed to be good when she was at that level. She got embarrassed and said she wasn't lying. She really was better at this sport than others. Yui said her lack of coordination was pretty bad, which was why she was playing like that. Natsuki thought she was the one who suggested they come here. Hikari confirmed it and said there was nothing wrong with that. She might be bad, but she liked these kinds of things. She was getting a little annoyed because they kept saying she was really bad. But Natsuki just laughed and thought that even when she was upset, she was still really cute. He had been saying how cute she was for a while now, but it was inevitable when she was around. After that, they played again, but Hikari didn't have much luck. Then Rei played against Yui and beat her easily. In the end, Sakura lost to Tatsuya. Rei ended up beating Natsuki, so the final was between Rei and Tatsuya. Rei was confident because it seemed he had always beaten him at this. Takuya got annoyed and said the only thing that mattered was who could win right now. In the end, Rei beat him by a very narrow margin. Sakura was watching and was upset, saying she was better than both of them. Natsuki told her she was right just so Sakura wouldn't feel bad. Tatsuya wanted to move on to the next game, but Natsuki suggested they take a break because they had played a lot. However, Takuya told him in an annoyed tone that this place had a time limit and they should make the most of it. Natsuki got scared because it seemed Takuya was really angry, though he realized he was actually frustrated because Rei had crushed him and he couldn't win. Takuya said he was going to vent his frustration at the batting machine and went off by himself. Sakura asked the others if they should really leave him alone. Hikari thought that would be cruel and not a good way to treat a friend, although Rei thought that true friends didn't always have to be together. Hikari seemed to understand more or less. Yui said she agreed. They already knew each other well enough and didn't need to be so considerate. Natsuki was just analyzing everything and said that outside of his family, he had never had this kind of relationship before. He thought he still didn't have it because there was still a long way to go before they became real friends. Rei was watching him and noticed that Natsuki was deep in thought. After that, they went to get something to eat. Sakura wanted them to make a toast for starting high school. Rei asked if that toast was the reason they all went out together. Sakura said not at all and mentioned that she had just thought of it. This was simply proof that they were all friends now. Hikari asked how she could say things like that without getting embarrassed. Sakura asked if it was wrong to say it and said not at all. She mentioned that it was actually really adorable when Hikari got like that, though Yui thought Hikari was adorable too. Hikari asked her to stop because she was already embarrassed. Rei told Natsuki that he was impressed because they were all in sports clubs, yet he was able to keep up with them. Sakura thought the same and said now she understood why his body was as hard as a board. Takuya was also praising his skills. He asked why he didn't join a club if he had such good ability. Natsuki said he didn't because he was planning to look for a part-time job when he started high school since he was broke. Takuya said he didn't understand because he had never worked. Rei said restaurants and supermarkets were the most common options. Sakura said karaoke places or fast food restaurants were also good options. Natsuki said he had those places in mind. Yui asked if he would like to come see where she worked to see if he was interested, but everyone was surprised because they didn't know Yui had a job. They weren't even aware of it. Yui explained that she worked at a cafe near this place. They were still surprised, but Yui said she understood because she had never told anyone. The place was called Café Mares and their sweets were quite famous. Sakura said she knew it and had visited before. She said the server who worked there. Yui said the pay was good and the treatment was excellent. Natsuki was convinced and said he would visit sometime to see if it suited him. Hikari was upset because she thought Yui, being her best friend, was hiding things from her. But she had just told Natsuki something she didn't know. She said something didn't add up. Natsuki thought she was referring to Yui having feelings for him and that's why she hadn't told her. Yui asked Hikari to calm down because she was going to tell her sooner or later. She had only told Natsuki by pure chance because he was looking for a job. When Natsuki heard that, he thought he was an idiot because he had already assumed Yui had feelings for him and had gotten a bit carried away. He went to get a drink to calm himself down. Rei appeared, and since they were alone, he asked if by any chance he disliked Takuya. Natsuki was surprised and didn't know what to say. He had always found him strange because of his past and didn't expect anyone to notice the way he looked at him. When Rei saw he wasn't responding, he said he figured as much. But Natsuki asked why he thought that. Rei said it wasn't anything strong, but everyone was getting along really well, except he hadn't spent much time with Takuya, so that's what he thought. Natsuki said he was actually right because he hadn't talked much with him. He told Rei he was very observant. Rei accepted it, saying he paid a lot of attention to his surroundings. He hadn't said anything before because he thought it was normal since they were just getting to know each other. But today he noticed something that didn't feel right. Natsuki asked if he really thought he disliked Takuya. Rei said what he actually observed in Natsuki was something like fear toward Takuya. That's what he saw, but he hoped it was just his imagination. Natsuki was honest and admitted he was right, but not entirely. He said Takuya wasn't at fault because the problem was with him. He didn't want him to tell anyone about this because Takuya hadn't done anything wrong. He thought it was just a matter of time before they got along well. Rei understood and promised he wouldn't say anything. Natsuki asked if he was okay with that. Rei said it wasn't like he had the right to do anything anyway. He thought the problem was between the two of them and he shouldn't get involved. Although he also thought Takuya was a bit oblivious and would never notice. He said he came to ask because he was really curious. After all, they were friends now and he thought something was bothering him. He wouldn't ask exactly what the problem was. He already said he could handle it, so he would simply believe him. After that, Rei left because there was nothing more to talk about. Natsuki thought that Rei wasn't popular just because he was attractive. He was also a great person, which added a lot of points. Sakura and the others were playing basketball while the rest watched. But Natsuki couldn't stop thinking about the earlier conversation. He remembered he used to be on the basketball team and that something had happened, but he didn't mention it. Rei was also playing with them and wanted Natsuki to join. Natsuki was a bit surprised but liked the idea. He mentioned that he used to like basketball, but back then everyone hated him. He wasn't in good physical condition. But even so, he kept playing through high school and continued practicing a lot in university. Basically, he had been practicing basketball for 7 years. Although since his restart he hadn't touched a ball until now. He simply decided to shoot, and his 7 years of practice showed clearly because he made a perfect shot. Everyone was amazed because he clearly didn't look like a beginner. Hikari said it was incredible and Yui thought the same. Natsuki hadn't noticed, but his physical change had also improved his skills. He said his body felt much lighter. He shot again and looked like a three-point machine. He didn't expect his physical change to improve him so much and thought he should have trained in his first life. Sakura said that was amazing. Rei thought he was really quite good at basketball. Natsuki was quite humble and said he wasn't that good. Sakura said it would be great if he joined the team. Natsuki said he had never played on one and didn't think it was a good idea. Sakura asked why he was so good if he had never been on a team. She thought he was a genius because he was good without even playing. Natsuki didn't want them to suspect anything. So he said there was a court near his house and that's why he played like this. Sakura kept thinking he should join and asked Takuya what he thought. Takuya was looking very serious and they didn't understand why. But he quickly changed his expression and said he was just amazed and still processing how good Natsuki was. Sakura kept trying to convince him, but Natsuki reminded her that he needed to find a job. Sakura thought he was wasting his talent. Tatsuya wanted to see it directly and asked him to play one-on-one to find out if he was really that good. First to score 3 points would win. Natsuki remembered what he had told Rei about being afraid of Takuya. He thought that right now he could overcome that past trauma by playing against him because it wouldn't be right to keep avoiding him. He said he would beat him and give it his all. Sakura and Hikari were cheering for him. Takuya was ready but got a bit annoyed because no one was cheering for him. Natsuki said that was his advantage since he was on the basketball team. He knew Hikari was watching and thought he should take the chance to impress her. He was remembering the way Takuya played. He had always watched him during practice, so he had his playing style memorized. He was ready, used some feints to get past him, and scored the first point. Takuya couldn't even see it coming. It seemed his plan to impress Hikari worked because she was completely smitten. Now it was his turn to defend, and Takuya came at him with everything. But he knew his feints, so it didn't work. Natsuki thought this was too easy because he had spent 3 years watching Takuya's playing style. Takuya didn't understand how he could predict it. Natsuki said it was just instinct, although he admitted it was super easy because this Takuya was only a first year and still had a long way to go. He said if he played against third-year Takuya he wouldn't stand a chance. But this wasn't the case, and he easily used some feints to score the second point. He mentioned that he didn't have talent, but 7 years of experience were really useful. Tatsuya said he would have to take it seriously because he only had 1 point left before losing. He increased his speed to get past him and scored the first point. Natsuki had underestimated him and thought everything was already calculated. Hikari was still watching, so Natsuki didn't want to lose for anything in the world. He wanted to show off for Hikari, but he also remembered that he had always wanted to beat Takuya. He admired him a lot and mentioned that in the past Takuya had always protected him when everyone else looked at him badly. He knew that if he stayed on the basketball team until the end, it was because Takuya, as captain and star of the team, never allowed anyone to speak badly about him. He knew his adolescence was somewhat gray, but it didn't get darker thanks to Takuya. He was grateful for everything he had done for him, and that's why now he wouldn't hold back and would play with everything he had. He stole the ball and prepared to make his third point. He mentioned that he was afraid of Tatsuya because he seemed so dazzling. He was so brilliant that he couldn't look at him directly, and it terrified him that he might end up hating him like before. In the end, he decided to take a long shot and scored the third point to win. He mentioned that this time he wouldn't disappoint him like before, and would do everything he could to become his friend. In the end, he managed to show off in front of everyone, especially Hikari. Sakura was congratulating him on his victory. Takuya initially looked a bit annoyed but accepted his defeat. He didn't think it was so bad to lose to Natsuki because he thought he was a good guy. And well, that's the end of chapter 2. See you in the next part. So yeah, that's all.